What's up, Eagles fans? And I get it. We're all locked in. We're all at home. We're all trying to figure out how do we learn more about the game that we love from our house. And what better way to do that when with actual Eagles coaches? And that's the goal here with our Coaches Masterclass presented by Lincoln Financial Group. Every single week over the next few weeks, I'm going to sit down with an Eagles assistant coach and we're going to dive into the film. We're going to break down a specific part of their position. Today, it starts with the run game. Well, really happy to be joined by Eagles offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland. Coach, really excited to kind of dive into some run schemes here and talk about the differences between zone blocking and gap scheme blocking. And with the help of some film here, excited for you to kind of go through some coaching points and just basically give fans an idea of what it looks like. And we'll start with zone schemes. I guess before we get into the film, what is the goal of a typical zone blocking scheme? What does it look like and what is the goal?
Well, first, before we do that, first let's just. I'm excited to do this for you because number one, we've all been locked down. Hopefully, everybody's taking care of their families. Everybody's staying safe, and to be able to coach, this is what we do. It's exciting. It's fun, and so this is just maybe something that'll they have some time to enjoy some fan football here. So the first thing that I want everybody to understand is the most important factor is when I'm teaching the offensive line how to surface blocks. When I mean surfacing blocks, what part of your body are you using to strike the defender? We use what's called the flipper technique, where you'll see on the film, you'll see a lot of times they're using their arm, their shoulder, and then you'll see the trail player coming in with two hands and punching. So there's no face, head, any of that type of stuff going on. What keeps our players safe, extremely safe. I've always taught it that way. I think it's more effective that way, and you'll see some of this being replicated on the film here. So the other thing that I need you to understand is, what is the matchup situation? I think that's really important. When you're running a gap scheme play, most of the time you're running it towards the tight end, in the direction of our tight end. When you're running a zone scheme, majority of the time, the ball begins or starts away from the tight end. So what does that matchup look like on film? Okay, these are very important factors. The other thing I'm looking for is how fast are the linebackers running downhill into their gaps. I coached defense many years before I started on the offensive side. I played defense, I played linebacker. So I have a really good feel of what they're teaching the defensive players to do and how quickly they are reacting. Everybody's different. So to watch the film, to analyze the film before you build a game plan, to decide whether a zone scheme is a better play, a gap scheme. Sometimes they complement each other. And I'm going to show this to you in a minute. I'm going to show you how they complement each other so well. Okay, so we'll get started on the tape here. The first scheme that we have on here is a zone scheme, and we're running that play to the two-man surface. When I say the two-man surface, I'm referring to the tackle and guard, which means away from the tight end. The tight end side would be a three-man surface. So here you see the combination block between the center and the right guard. Brooks is using the inside portion of his body to surface the block, whereas Kelsey is coming in with two hands. He's getting behind it as though he were pushing a Volkswagen up a hill. He's getting directly behind that block. I use these visual aids for the players. So I say to the player, I say to Jason Kelsey, if you're going to push a car up a hill, you're going to do it from the quarter panel, you're going to get from the side of the car, or you're going to get directly behind that car to get your maximum torque and push. And I think that helps a player kind of understand what she does a tremendous job here, getting directly behind that block. And now you see Isaac on the left guard. He's surfacing the block with the left side of his body. And what that does is it gives surface for Jason Peters to get in. There's something for him to strike now. Now, this is not easy stuff. This is stuff that has to be practiced, drilled, constantly footwork to put yourself in a position to strike, to surface the block, whereas Jason Peters has something to hit when he comes behind. So all this stuff is detailed out. The more times you do it, the better you are at it. And so you see in two double teams here, you're creating You're creating movement up front. What happens to the linebackers here, everybody on defense has a gap to fill to stop the run. Now, they also are in a conflict with if you play action past them, they have to stop, they redirect, they have to drop out of there. That's why every run play that we have in our playbook, there is a play action pass that is a replica. It looks exactly the same as the run. And to be effective in a run game, you have to be great at the play action. I think Carson Wentz is tremendous at play action pass, and he loves the concept. And so you have to make sure that when you build them, they are exactly the same. So we have a play action off this. We have a play action off the gap scheme play that we're going to run. So right now they're missing a gap. If you look on the back side of this thing, you're going to see that there's an A gap, a B gap, a C gap, and a D gap. On the front side, they've kind of filled all the gaps. Now, the running back is able to see this and find the gap to the backside, which is they're missing. The safety is coming down a little bit later, and so he's not able to fill that D gap in time before that ball rolls back. So when we build a game plan, we're looking at formations to try to figure out how these defensive people are lining up to certain formations. And a lot of this is going on the tight end. A lot of the pressure is putting on that particular block. The angle of departure that you take has to marry the running back. So if you look at the offensive line on the zone play, okay, the offensive line shoulders, their angle that they take should marry that running back's angle of departure. And that's really synchronized football when you do that. When your offensive line and they're taking the same departure angle as that back, now you're pretty synchronized. Now, if you run the mid-zone play, that all changes too. The departure angles all change. The running back's angle changes. And to me, it has to be all synchronized. Now, the next clip we're going to look at, you're going to see a situation where we displaced the front side nose tackle here. Isaac and Kelsey displaced the front side nose guard defensive tackle to the point where the linebacker's in a bind. Now, I know this. This is why I really enjoy and I love and when we put in a play, this is the first scheme we put in, I'll be honest with you. And the reason why we do this is I know the conflict that it puts on the defense, the stress that it puts on that linebacker. That linebacker is sitting there saying, I have the B gap between Isaac and JP. Okay, that's his gap in the run game. Now, if Kelsey and Isaac take that nose tackle or that defensive tackle and they displace him to the point where they throw him into the B gap, well, now you have two defenders in the B gap, and the linebacker has to gap replace. You see him here, he tries to replace and tries to make it right for the defensive tackle. And so he jumps backside on it. Now their gaps are all messed up in the run game. And so this is why the zone play is so effective. You have to be able to knock people off the ball in the zone schemes to be able to create gap replacement by the linebackers, which they're doing right here. And we caught them. Now we got the two defenders in the same gap, and the running back is able to find that gap. Jordan does a great job of that, and we're off and running.
Coach, without giving away anything that's specific to the Eagles scheme, what is it that most teams, when they're trying to figure out, they're lining up pre-snap,
Don't worry, I'm not going to give anything away to hurt the Eagles. But I do have an obligation, to teach and explain and do the very best I can for our fans. Our fans are the best fans in the world. I'll do anything for them. I just don't want to give anything away to our opponent. In this league, every inch matters. Trust me.
So the question I have is, when you're lining up, how do those guys know pre-snap? Here's who I'm going to block. And when after the snap and guys move and they change gaps, if there's a slant along the defensive line, how do they account for that on the move, on the fly?
Well, the uncovered, what I refer to as the uncovered lineman and the covered lineman. In that picture, Isaac was the covered lineman. Jason Kelsey was the uncovered lineman. Okay, so each of those positions has a specific job that they're being required to do for that occasion. So Isaac knows the departure angle and the spot he needs to be at, knowing that Jason Kelsey's coming at full speed and he's covered to his inside. He has in his mind, he has this picture. I know my spot where I got to be at. I know I have to give enough surface for Jason Kelsey to hit. So he goes to that spot. The defender steps towards him. The two of them get into the block, and now the linebacker jumps backside. Kelsey does a great job with his eyes. The other thing I haven't talked about is we got to have great eyes. I call them Bug's eyes. So if we had bug's eyes, our eyes would be the size of bowling balls. We cannot have eye violation. You need to know where your eyes need to be. Each player, if you're the covered player or the uncovered player, I give them targets and I give them spots that their eyes need to be in. So when situations like this happen, they're quick to react.
So, Coach, next question I've got is the difference between an inside zone and an outside zone. You alluded to mid zone as well. Can you just quickly just paint the picture for fans? What is the difference between inside zone, outside zone, and then mid zone as well?
Well, the running back, we can do this out of from underneath the center, or we can do this from the shotgun. But the difference is the departure angle of the running back. Okay, the back would not be working up into the line of scrimmage like this. He would be on a flatter path. Well, if the running back's on the flatter path, then the offensive line has to replicate and mirror the angle of the running back for this to be a successful play.
Got it. So it's all about the angle of departure for the back, and then the offensive line is going to mirror off that. And then how often do you guys rep because it's like synchronized swimming, those guys working together on those double teams. How often do you guys have to rep that? You mentioned every rep counts, and there's so much that has to go into it. How often do you guys work on it from spring through summer through fall?
Well, the players kind of joke with me. They bust my chops. It's all good. We all love each other. I know this. As long as I'm in coaching, every single day that we're on the field, we're going to work on what I call mate blocking, which is the zone blocking. Every single day that we're on the field, all the reporters, everybody that's out there, they always go, first thing we do is we get into this situation right here. And then what we do is we provide them with, like you said earlier, Fran, what happens when the guy loops outside and the backer switches and they stem late and so every single one of those situations, we will provide them in the practice session. Now, in my younger days of coaching, okay, I used to do a lot of individual like shoot drills, board drills, individualized blocking techniques, and I still do those kinds of things. But you got to pick and choose what you want to be great at. You don't have all the time in the world to do these kind of things. So that's why the OTA session right now is when you kind of build your foundation with all this stuff. But so you have to choose what in fact is most important for your guys, and this is very, very important. So we're going to do this every day that we're out there.
All right, Coach. Let's make the transition over to gap scheme. So we talked about what a zone scheme looks like. Take us through now. What's the difference between zone scheme and then gap scheme?
These two plays complement each other. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm not saying that we should just run one or the other. I'm saying that they are complementary of each other. I like to run both of them in the game plan, but based on how a defensive group is playing, how fast people are reacting. So if you play the tape, I'll show you the backside here to the tight end side. And notice the running back is set over there in the gun again to the tight end side here to the right. Notice the linebacker comes in with the running back. And here you see the guard and tackle are in that same type of combination block. But this is not a zone scheme. All right, so if you see Lane and Brandon here, and you see the back set to the tight end, now for that linebacker, the beginning phase of this looks just like the zone play. Those two are running that combination block. The back's taking the same steps. And now you see Isaac pulling. This works out perfectly, and I'm going to tell you why it works out perfectly. Number one, the way that Lane Johnson and Brandon push off this double team, see him push off and Lane comes off to the linebacker. Now, this is why you have to analyze tape before you elect to use such a scheme. When the backside guard pulls, who in this case is Isaac, that's a tip-off. That tells the linebacker when that guard pulls, he knows. See him flow real quick? If you're a linebacker, you're looking through a triangle. Trust me, I coached it and I played it. You're looking through the triangle of the guard to the back. So once that guard pulls, that backer starts to flow. So when I talk to Brandon and I talk to Lane and I say, look, understand the linebacker is going to fast flow when Isaac pulls. Unlike the play we just ran, this combination block, it's to the backside linebacker, and you have to be ready to push that block on top of Brandon so that you can come off based on how fast that linebacker coach at Chicago is teaching them to flow. And then what's also important here is you're running this to the three-man surface. This play is being run to the tight end. So you see the safety coming down into the box right there. And then you tell the guard, you tell Isaac, look, that linebacker by trade, he should be spilling that ball. He should be taking his outside arm and he should be ripping across Isaac's face, trying to spill the ball out to the safety. Now, when I watch the film, I'm looking to see, is the linebacker doing a super great job of doing that? And if I say, he's average at it, I see clips of it on film where you can take advantage of that maybe. And now you tell Isaac, on the film, he's not consistent. All right, some teams, you play the Patriots, and I guarantee you that guy's going to take his arm and he's going to drive it through the face mask of 73 and spill it right to that safety. And now they have every single gap occupied. So you have to kind of see when you watch the film. So what I do is I watch every gap scheme play that's ever been run against the team before we decide we're going to run that play. The other thing I know that you got to be able to do is be creative. You got to be creative when you run a gap scheme because there's always going to be another defender coming down in the direction of the tight end. So here's what I do. The right gap is the A gap, okay? The B gap, the C gap, and the D gap. So there's 4 gaps to the tight end side. So I look at the structure of the defense and they say, who's got what gap? Right now they got 3 gaps covered. The 4th gap is that safety that's kind of got some depth right there. There's some opportunity. That's a 6.5-man box for me. I'm saying we can go ahead and we can run this play against this team. Now, if that safety was sitting down 3 yards off the line of scrimmage, sitting right there over the tight end, I don't know, that's a great play. Well, now you got to be creative with your wide receivers. The next play you're going to see you show, we're going to have to be creative by a formation. You have to implement your wide receiver to block the 4th element, which right here you see JJ's out of the screen, but he's real tight. You see the safety's down a lot tighter. This is a single high defense. I think the last defense was a shell. So you see JJ go in now and block the 4th element. Okay, so now it's a fair fight. If we didn't do that, like on the other play, we did not do that because we didn't have to do that. Here we feel like we have to. Now, if you're going to do this formationally and you're going to say, okay, we'll run the play because backside linebacker here doesn't flow very fast. He doesn't flow as fast as the Chicago Bears backside linebacker. So my point is, if you're going to do this play, and you're going to ask JJ to be part of the blocking scheme, well, now you have to have other schemes and other play actions off that exact same formation. Otherwise, these defensive people, trust me, the minute you run it one time, it's in the memory bank. They got it. So you better have 3 or 4 plays that replicate the exact same formation with the back set the exact same way. And now you can run the play more times in the game and still have an advantage and still have success doing it. If you just go jumping around and you're building a run plan and you're just saying, oh, we'll run this one play out of this, one play out of that. This is the NFL. They are going to know exactly the second time that you're running that play. It makes it much more difficult to have success.
Well, Coach, thanks so much for joining us here. Again, giving us a little bit of insight into the difference between zone schemes, gap schemes. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll talk to you again soon.
Same to you guys. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.